Hello, my friends, and welcome to another edition of Rotoworld Live, served by Applebee's. Oh, it's going to be a great Sunday. It's week 13. Hopefully, you all are just this close to making your fantasy football playoffs. And if not, if you need a little bit of boost or you don't need to claim that number one seed, that's why Patrick Doherty, John Daigle, and Hayden Winks are here. Pat already flubbed up this morning. I don't know if you're watching the Arsenal-Tottenham match. Heung-min Son scored this screamer of a goal from outside the box, and I typed "holy expletive son," and I get these tweets saying, "Come on, Norris, no soccer tweets." Maybe write like hashtag soccer tweet or something, dude. It's football Sunday. Pat, we can only like one sport apparently.
Well, yeah, and don't you know that children are on Twitter too? I mean, even if you censored it, it's not really appropriate to do that. And my morning's just ruined. I'm rattled by Isaiah Coulter being a healthy scratch for the Texans, so that's all I can really think about this morning. Had to change all those GPP lineups. And hopefully, you all tuned into the preview show. It was a good one this past week. All right, we did get some news every Sunday. It feels like that happens each and every morning here on these game days. The big one today, I would say, John Daigle, is Tua Tagovailoa starting at quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. At least that's what we believe. We know they're 10-point favorites against the Cincinnati Bengals, but also not just at quarterback, just a little bit of not confusion, but some changeover at the running back position as well.
Oh, no confusion whatsoever. It's actually only going to be Gaskin and Laird. We can throw out the Malcolm Perrys of the world since he's actually a slot receiver for the team, even though they list him as a running back. So I think just given the limited number of options they have in their backfield, you start Gaskin everywhere today as a fringe RB1 because no one else can handle that type of workload. We've seen Patrick Laird is not an early down guy. He may sprinkle in on third downs, but even when Gaskin was previous healthy before injury, he was still being used as their pass catching running back as well. So I think Gaskin returns to a full workload today, no matter to his performance under center, since it is a terrific matchup.
And Hayden, over to you. I am looking at our composite rankings, which are on the website right now. And you have Devontae Booker as the running back 12 this week. Meanwhile, some other people have him much lower. Again, everyone can go check those out on rotoworld.com/edge. We know that Devontae Booker's filling in for Josh Jacobs. We know they're facing a great matchup against the New York Jets. So much confidence for you to have him as a running back one.
Yeah, if you look at the Vegas implied team totals, the Raiders are really high up there. So when I was looking at the RB2s, and he's more of an RB2 than a low-end RB1, certainly, I'm not too concerned about Jalen Richard or anybody like that. I think that Devontae Booker is going to have 80% of the RB touches this week, and they are big favorites, of course, against the Jets. And I was looking at the other teams, and I was like, all right, these guys project for similar workloads, but the Raiders are projected for like 27 points, and these other teams are projected for like 23. So I sided with Devontae Booker. Maybe he has a little bit higher of a touchdown opportunity than the other guys.
All right. Once again, you all know that this is Rotoworld Live served by Applebee's, and the goal of the show is to help you set your optimal and perfect lineup. So get in your questions on Twitch, on YouTube, on Periscope, and all those good places. Pat, we'll start off with you. And the first one from Aryan Shetty. Need a running back and flex between Antonio Gibson, Nyheim Hines, Kareem Hunt, JK Dobbins, Devontae Booker, and Julio Jones. Why don't we make this one easy, Pat? We'll go split this one between you and Daigle. So pick one of these names that for certain is going to be in your lineup this week.
Antonio Gibson next. And then honestly, also Kareem Hunt. Or I'd probably do Julio over Kareem Hunt, actually, still. I didn't see Julio there at the end. I was just dazzled by the running back names.
Well, Pat, let's talk about the Antonio Gibson one if you're so confident, because I've seen people, I believe over Action Network, who I like a lot of people who work over there, say and are a little bit concerned that this might be a little bit of a J.D. McKissick week. And we've seen that in previous weeks as well. As the tide turns completely in Antonio Gibson's favor, that no matter what the game script possibly is, that he's going to get most of the workload, because almost certainly they're going to lose the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, they will. But I feel like we're pretty comfortable with the way Antonio Gibson has commandeered everything there, right? I mean, is J.D. McKissick even in the top 40 anymore for you guys, or are we totally moving on there?
I've moved on.
Our moment has come and gone even, yeah.
Okay. Daigle?
The other one,
the other names.
The other one's easy. It's Julio Jones. Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, when fully healthy together, have scored the fourth most fantasy points among wide receivers, both of them per game. And so I know that this would seem like a tougher matchup, but again, no Janoris Jenkins, no Marcus Davenport today. All fully healthy, good to go.
All right, Hayden, first question for you today from Adam Johnson Jr. Good afternoon, fellas. I'm in a quarterback bind. That's difficult in week 13. Who should I start between Tua Tagovailoa, Kirk Cousins, or Derek Carr? Despite the matchup, and tell me if you disagree, Hayden, I don't think we can start Tua against Cincinnati just based on what we've seen. But I'm looking at Kirk Cousins against Jacksonville Jaguars, 10-point favorites at home, a total of 51 in this game. Kind of adds up to a great performance here.
Yeah, Tua has some benching risk, so I don't even want to go down that route. So it's between Cousins and Carr. This is the Spider-Man meme looking right at them. Both high totals, easy matchups, run first teams, but can be efficient passing as well. I'm going to side with Kirk Cousins. He's got the much better receivers at this point. So I have him like as a high-end QB2, maybe even like a low-end QB1 this week.
Cool. All right. Now let's go on over. Pat, up to you. Another quarterback question. Deshaun Watson or Josh Allen?
I've been doing my Deshaun Watson spiel all week about how I'm sad. He was like an underrated MVP candidate, and now he's no longer really a high-end QB1, more in the QB 10 to 12 range. And Josh Allen, even though weeks 1 to 3 was kind of false advertising, like he didn't have like that truly stratospheric every week upside, but both the floor and upside are that of like an every week top 5 or 6 quarterback. And he's not going to probably be the QB1 anymore, a lot like in that contention. But even for a tough matchup like the 49ers, you can almost always count on a 2-touchdown floor, one of which will be rushing. I still have him in the top 5 or 6.
God, we're getting a lot of the same names today already, but we'll first go to a different one. We'll circle back to, your JK Dobbins, your Antonio Gibsons, which there are questions for, so on and so forth. Anyways, we'll go to this one to you, Daigle.
What are the questions about Antonio Gibson? Just the stream.
Well, here, I'll bring it up then.
Get him in the lineup, folks. Not really
so
sure.
Look, here's one from Charles Johannes, Pat. Start 2 in full-point PPR. Antonio Gibson, Myles Gaskin, JK Dobbins, and Diontae Johnson. Pat, I think it might be a question because a lot of these you can talk yourself into these matchups and the workloads.
You can, but like Antonio Gibson, one of the league leaders in rushing touchdowns. It's not really a predictive stat, but it's because he's dominated early downs. They need him so badly for that role. It's such a pop gun passing attack. We know he can be the more involved as receiver. We're finally seeing that. I think it will be a close game with the Steelers. The Steelers don't blow anybody out. They play down to their competition. It's very I just view Antonio Gibson as a very safe top 8 RB1 and a higher floor than Gaskin. Maybe Dobbins is the highest. No, higher floor and ceiling than both Dobbins and Gaskin. My second here too in PPR, I would bank those Diontae Johnson receptions, just to be honest, over either.
I think we may have lost our host, but either way, this is the range that I believe Gaskin should be in. So Gaskin or Dobbins, I still lean Gaskin. However, as we know, Antonio Gibson still top 10, I think maybe 8th overall in fantasy points per game among running backs, and that's despite being used until this point or not being used in negative game script. So sure, you have confidence in Antonio Gibson above these others.
Look, I just wanted to momentarily see what would happen when I left this chat. So I'm glad you all survived for the 5 seconds I was gone.
Just to be honest, we're professionals, so we kept on, but it was sheer panic.
All right, Hayden, over to you from M. Bryan 719. Miles Sanders or Brandon Ayuk? I mean,
this one's
I have this debate as well, and I'll let you lay out why it might be a question, Hayden.
I'm going Miles Sanders, but I have Miles Sanders concerns right now because he's dropping. I think he's dropped 8 out of his 27 catchable passes. They're mixing in Boston Scott. It sounds like Jordan Howard's going to possibly be active down the stretch as well. So there's a little bit of concern with Miles Sanders, especially in this offense. But with Brandon Ayuk, he hasn't really competed with Deebo Samuel yet, and as much as I want to trust Shanahan, I think you have to value the touches over Brandon Ayuk's upside. But I think both of them are like flex range. I think Miles Sanders is more of an RB2 than flex still, just because there's theoretical upside in this matchup.
Daigle, we're 10 minutes in, and the line today that we have to discover is the Devontae Booker line. All right? Wozzless, Wayne Gallman, or Devontae Booker. We talked about in the show, Daigle, you and I have a side bet here on Wayne Gallman's production. Over the past, I think, 5 weeks, he's averaging about 15 half-point fantasy points per game. So would you start him over Devontae Booker despite being attached to Colt McCoy?
No, I think I genuinely don't know what's going to happen with Devontae Booker's production, but I do know he's going to get all the touches. If this does somehow become negative game script with this Jets offense that the last 3 games that Gase has called plays with Sam Darnold under center, they've averaged 9 points per game. Like if they somehow threaten the Raiders, then sure, Jalen Richard will come in a negative game script and so receptions in place of Booker. But as 9.5-point road favorites, you would assume entails just putting the ball into Booker's belly and letting him run wild. So 20-plus touches, I'm taking that.
All right, Pat, I'm sure we'll get more of these, but let's continue to define that Devontae Booker line. Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson, or Devontae Booker. I mean, that is rich.
That is right. And, I'm like the zealot for preaching running back touches, but I don't think I could ever bench Calvin Ridley or Justin Jefferson's upside, with the fantasy championship on the line too. I think Devontae Booker has the highest floor there because he's going to, as John said, get all the running back touches. He's got an extremely high touch floor this week, but to me, it's an easy way to lose a matchup, lose a week. You cannot go down. Start your studs isn't actually good advice, but you can never bench that kind of upside. That is top 10 upside for both of them. And I couldn't lose with Calvin Ridley or Justin Jefferson on my bench.
Hey, let's rank that. I think I would place Justin Jefferson over Calvin Ridley in that situation too.
Man, Calvin Ridley and Justin Jefferson, their matchups couldn't get any better. Calvin Ridley was getting covered by Janoris Jenkins last in week 11, and Calvin Ridley had a big game against Janoris Jenkins. Now they're going to a backup, and the Saints play a lot of press man, so good luck if you're a backup trying to press man on Calvin Ridley. So Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley, I think both of them are top 10 plays, and the matchup's just going to get better for either of them.
All right, Daigle, over to you. Speaking of wide receivers, we have Andy Dalton back in our lives. The Dallas Cowboys offensive situation can be difficult to figure out in terms of how much we believe in it each and every week. Are you going to take the Amari Cooper potential stat line versus the Myles Gaskin floor here for Brendan Lincoln?
I would take Gaskin. Again, I'm not concerned about Gaskin at all today, especially given how few options they have to lean on. So I'm going Gaskin. Ravens are getting healthier. There's still a number of players on their COVID list, but they seem to be taking 2 or 3 off with every passing day. I think they're going to be close to full health on Tuesday night. So I'm preferably just taking Gaskin's floor.
We're also getting a lot of JK Dobbins questions. Pat, this is just one teed up for you to alley-oop in. Frank Underwood, where do you rank JK Dobbins? And by the way, if you're concerned with the rankings of Pat's, you can check them out from the site right now.
I look at my rankings one time per week. It's on Tuesday morning, so I don't really remember where I put JK. JK Dobbins was a tough one all week. I ultimately did decide to put him and keep him in the top 20. I have him as the RB18. It's tough because we don't really know what his COVID experience was, but it seemed like he wasn't on the list very long. We didn't hear about him being sick. I'm assuming he's returning at or near full conditioning. An offense that had committed to him the week before Thanksgiving, before all the COVID madness. We finally saw the changing of the guard there, and there's risk. Mark Ingram is also back. Gus Edwards never went away, but the Ravens desperately are playing for their season. They're just trying to fight to make the playoffs now. They decided that JK Dobbins was their best bet 2 weeks ago. He rewarded them. I think they'll go back to that well today, and I have him as the RB18.
It's week 13. Gentlemen, and we're getting probably the biggest names of the season. Hayden, over to you. Post game. Alvin Kamara, who has 1 reception in his last 2 games, or Diontae Johnson, who could have had about 17 catches last week, but dropped about 17 of them.
Yeah, this might be my Diontae Johnson bias, but I'm going Alvin Kamara. I think that the last week against the Broncos was kind of a week we can throw out for Alvin Kamara. I'm not expecting anything more than maybe 4 catches this week, but I think that it's going to be more than it was the previous weeks. I'm expecting this game for the Saints to be a lot closer than the week 11 and week 12 game. I think they wanted to slow down Kamara a little bit because his workload was getting crazy, save him up for the playoffs a little bit, but they're playing the Falcons this week, and I'm expecting the Falcons to kind of compete more than other people think just because the Saints are missing multiple players on defense, plus their left tackle. I think that Alvin Kamara's workload is going to go up again. I'm not ranking him inside the top 5 anymore just because the PPR floor is not there, but I have him still as an RB1.
I'll answer this one quick because the answer is obvious. Diontae Johnson or Melvin Gordon for Jeff Oberts. That one is Diontae Johnson. Very, very simply. Daigle, over to you. Another David Johnson question, who's back in our lives. We know that Duke Johnson has, I would say, been more missed than hit over the past couple weeks. We know that Benny Snell is going to be the leading running back for the Steelers this week as well. So which one are you going to go here?
Is James Conner for sure out Monday?
Schefter,
for sure, but pretty for sure.
Adam Schefter came out and said he will be activated from the COVID list, but will not play.
Okay, and if that's the case, I'm taking Benny Snell. David Johnson, I know there is the potential, like we haven't seen it in a little bit, so we forget that we didn't want to start him even when he was healthy earlier this year. It's also a terrible matchup against the Colts front seven, who are healthy now. Danico Autry, the other defensive tackle, I always forget. Josh.
DeForest Buckner.
Thank you. It's the better one. I always forget his name. Anyway, awful matchup. So I'm just taking Benny Snell's touches.
Pat, more Justin Jefferson questions for you. Justin Jefferson or Raheem Mostert? I'm looking at this line of the Bills and the 49ers. The Bills opened as 3-point favorites, and now at home, the 49ers are 1-point favorites. I mean, what a shift, a 4-point shift throughout the week. Doesn't that side us with Raheem Mostert?
Beating Jared Goff, just doesn't just happen. So the 49ers being Jared Goff, they're kind of regarded as a contender. I do kind of believe in it. This is another extremely tough one. I mean, the problem with Justin Jefferson is that it could be a 3 or 4 catch day always. Adam Thielen's off the COVID-19 list this week, but Justin Jefferson, it's still 3 or 4 catches. He's got like that week winning upside, and the matchup is so good. They're facing a defense I really do not think could be worse down the stretch. And the Jaguars just hollowed out at every level, and as much as I love to bank, this will probably be 15 to 16 carries for Raheem Mostert. I have him ranked as a high-end RB2. I would go Justin Jefferson and just go all in on the upside at this point. And Justin Jefferson can win you a week.
Hayden, I did not expect for us to be here, but Sunny1147 asks, he needs this to win his playoffs. Carson Wentz or Tua Tagovailoa? Look, we talked about Tua's matchup. They are 10-point favorites. If you go by the formula, that one adds up more so than being 8-point road dogs against the Green Bay Packers, which Carson Wentz is right now.
Carson Wentz has just been so much better than Tua in his starts. Like for fantasy, I'm not talking about like the eye test or anything like that. Both of them could be benched here. I think that Carson Wentz has more rushing appeal, and I think that he's going to pass more. And they're both like averaging like 6.5 yards per attempt right now. Like Tua hasn't been like excellent by any means. So I unfortunately am going to be ranking Carson Wentz as the preferred QB2.
Hey, I got to ask you now for I need this in my super flex. Are we going to do Tua or are we going to do Matthew Stafford? I was like, Matthew Stafford, it's finally going to happen. But Kenny Galladay's coming back. Swift's coming back, more pace. None of those things happened. Do I start Tua? Do I start Matthew Stafford?
I think I would go Tua here because Matthew Stafford hasn't been good, and it's been worse without Kenny Galladay, and they're playing the Bears. And the Bears haven't – I think they had, like, over the last 2 years, have given up, like, 300-yard games. So,
yeah,
it's tough sledding.
Basically no multi-touchdown performances of quarterbacks against the Bears either. Daigle, up to you. Let's do this one. Bunch of fringe names here. Some have put up some solid weeks, including Denzel Mims. But Adam Johnson, who would you start as a flex? Denzel Mims, Rashad Perriman, Sterling Shepard, or Rashard Higgins?
Is it Rashad or T?
Let's go with T.
Okay. I really don't know.
Let's give Adam the benefit of the doubt here.
Okay. It's still Denzel Mims for me. It was encouraging to see T. Higgins survive over Tyler Boyd. Talented player. That's why I suggested in the waiver wire column, don't drop him just yet. Just bench him, see what shakes out among that wide receiver core. And now we know it's likely T. Higgins and negative game script again today. Having said that, Mims, the targets just keep on being there. I think he has to score a touchdown eventually, right? Keeps getting more end zone targets than Rashad Perriman as well. It's finally a great matchup too. So I'm a big Denzel Mims fan this week.
Pat, down to you. Nico King, who joins us each and every week. Allen Robinson or Julio Jones? We know one is attached to Mitchell Trubisky, and we know one has been hobbled with a hamstring injury. Which one?
Yeah, I mean, it's supposedly Allen Robinson's hobbled too and is going, but the matchup's just a little too good for Allen Robinson. The volume just a little too consistent. Julio, it's just all over the map all year. When he's like we've talked about before, when he's injured, some weeks when Julio's been like questionable, we get like full every snap Julio. A few other times we've gotten like decoy Julio. I've got Julio in the top 12 because it sounds more like this week we're going to get every snap Julio, but just a little more confident in Allen Robinson's touch projection and definitely in the matchup too, in the crumbling Detroit Lions defense.
Let's go with more quarterback questions. We always love quarterback questions because in many cases they decide your week. Michael Sly, down to you, Hayden. Ryan Tannehill or Ben Roethlisberger? We covered that Titans Browns game a lot in the preview episode. Hopefully all of you are out there or subscribed to the Rotoworld Football podcast. You know, this Browns secondary is completely decimated by injuries at a lot of spots. And Ryan Tannehill throwing to A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, they got a good thing going.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the better quarterback, so definitely Ryan Tannehill. Big Ben's struggling right now.
Hey.
Like, he's putting up fantasy points because they are just passing in volume, but I like Ryan Tannehill's upside here. I think that this game has a much better chance of shooting out, the way higher team total. And, I mean, the Browns can't rush the passer like Washington can, so I'm going to go with that.
And remember, Tannehill and Derrick Henry can get there together as well. Like, they can both succeed.
Question. You're getting Ryan Tannehill in this one, who has thrown some games of like 41 attempts. But in many cases, and I would say probably in Mike Vrabel's dream, 26 attempts, 24 attempts in a game to win it, versus Ben Roethlisberger, who was leading that entire game last week and still threw the football 51 times. Does that mean anything here?
I mean, that's why Big Ben's been like a high-end QB2. But I mean, Ryan Tannehill, I'm pretty sure has been outpacing him in fantasy points this year.
Okay. You agree, Pat?
Ben can almost bank 2 touchdowns. There's a very little ceiling there with Ben right now. So Tannehill probably is the ceiling bet. I do have Ben. I just think Ben is so safe with the 2 touchdowns and 260 yards. Will not lose you he's basically a won't lose you your weak quarterback at this point. Even before James Conner got COVID, they were kind of just abandoning the running game and going all in on the short passing. But this is a legitimate debate. I lean Ben, but I fully understand the Tannehill argument.
Now we're at the halfway point. This is a perfect question from Stepped in Poo. I stepped in poo. I just did. Look, up the villa.
Up the villa. Josh lives in a French villa, very expensive.
If we ever can travel, Pat, if we can ever travel. Daigle, up to you. Sonny, we already asked this one. Let's now go to this one. I knew it was a Chase Claypool question. Or Alvin Kamara from FrankMan24. Daigle, which one are you leaning? I mean, you can't really give up Alvin Kamara in this situation, can you?
I want to, but I can't. No, unfortunately. Even in a home league, I have to sit one of Kamara, Gibson, Raheem, Mostert, and Austin Eckler. And I want to sit Kamara, but I just can't get away in a must win. I'm hoping the target share increases a hair here. So yeah, playing the better player here and hoping for the best.
Pat, Solo Bo dude needs your help. We are at this point in week 13, Lamar Jackson or Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers, who this morning it came out that he has to have foot surgery after the season and was already the most immobile quarterback in the NFL, who also is losing goal line snaps to Jacoby Brissett. Can he really be started against the Houston Texans defense, which is impossibly bad, over Lamar Jackson?
I mean, he's apparently playing today despite having an outpatient procedure to remove his foot this morning. It sounds like Phillip Rivers. Lamar, even though the perception is so bad, the stench of disappointment and underperformance, fantasy managers can't get past that. But I mean, he was still every week in the top 12 almost. And you got to go Lamar. Just the Phillip Rivers, all the reasons you laid out. Phillip has been having more Chargers type Rivers games lately, more 300-yard, 2 touchdown performances. But yeah, I am going with Lamar Jackson, and with the rushing, he's just still getting there. And ceiling, I mean, I feel like Lamar Jackson's ceiling is not in permanent hibernation, and that it will reappear at some point. And the Dallas Cowboys would be a great place for it to reappear.
Hayden, these are names we haven't talked about at all today from Michael Kennedy. Pick one in half-point PPR. Deebo Samuel, who was facing the Buffalo Bills and had a great week 12, or Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, we keep talking about it. The Cleveland Browns' avenue to success is running the football, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Kareem Hunt get 12 touches in this contest.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think I'm going to go Deebo Samuel. I have a lot of faith in Shanahan scheming touches to Deebo Samuel, and Deebo Samuel can win on his own, and he's a top 3, top 4 yards after the catch guy right now, and this is going to be a close contest, so I'm going to go Deebo Samuel. I do think that Kareem Hunt has a very high ceiling, though, especially if the Titans get out to a lead or two, then Kareem Hunt's going to really come in, but this is pretty close.
Dago, you always have some good thoughts on these. Why, in your eyes, has that line shifted so much between the Bills and the 49ers? Again, it's a 4-point swing, and it's swung all the way with the 49ers being 1-point favorites here.
That's a terrific question. I know Josh Allen has underperformed without John Brown historically, and the area of the field that the 49ers are susceptible the most, the deep ball, Allen has also struggled, not only with John Brown, just the past month. His hit rate on throws 20-plus yards downfield has gone downhill. So perhaps that's why. Also with Raheem Mostert back and everyone healthy pretty much except for George Kittle, it seems like the 49ers are actually clicking on all cylinders. So I do kind of like the Niners as well in that game.
Thank you. Thanks for answering that question. All right. Now let's go to Pat. Let's go with some fringe names. I know you had to rank all these guys, so why not ask about them? From Southern Westy, rank Benny Snell, Damian Harris, David Johnson, Gio Bernard, and Sanders. We don't need you to rank them, Pat. Which of these would you pick of the bunch?
I mean, Benny Snell was one guy where like every day I had basically a new ranking. I believe I settled in like RB 28 or 29. This one for me comes down to David Johnson and to Damian Harris, and I ultimately just went David Johnson, even though he hasn't played in 3 weeks, even though, like John said earlier in the show, he hasn't been good all season. Just the Texans, even in a bad matchup, Duke Johnson did nothing during David Johnson's 3-game absence, almost less than nothing. With the receiver problems, even in a bad matchup, they're going to have to focus on the running game more than they have been in recent weeks. And I am just going solely on the David Johnson touches. I prefer those to Damian Harris's touches, just because we know David Johnson will probably at least catch a few passes. And yeah, I mean, it's very little upside play. This is more like an RB2 low-end floor play.
Pat, that was a little bit unfair. I mean, it's not like Duke Johnson had negative fantasy points out there. What I think it did do is it eliminated anyone on Twitter suggesting that he can be a feature back at the NFL level anymore. I think that's what
I was one of those people, and he's had a raw deal of a career. He was amazing between the tackles runner at the University of
Miami. His highlight in that 3-week stretch was beating Jamie Collins on the boundary. That's it.
Yes.
That's all he did.
That I agree with that. All right. Here's some game theory for you, Hayden Winks, from Kenneth Miko. Half-point PPR, Terry McLaurin or Julio Jones, with the factored in that Julio Jones is playing with Matt Ryan and Kenneth is facing a Matt Ryan-led squad.
Yeah, I don't really look at my opponents in like season long too often. I think that you're kind of galaxy braining it. I think that the game theory comes in like DFS stuff. For me, I think Terry McLaurin in this case, I think that his floor is just much safer than Julio Jones. And I think both of them have immense upside. So I think this is the rare case where I think I just have Terry McLaurin above Julio Jones. I mean, Washington's getting the ball to Terry McLaurin.
Okay.
I got to interject there too. I agree with Hayden, but never consider who your opponents play because those points are happening regardless. And so if you think Julio is going to get more points than Terry McLaurin, it doesn't matter if Matt Ryan is also going to. The points will happen no matter what. And if you think Julio Jones is going to get more points than Terry McLaurin, you're not helping yourself by putting him on your bench because your opponent has Matt Ryan. So the points are happening no matter what you do. Just start who you think will get more points.
All right, up to you, Daigle. Go Bird 17. Any thoughts on CEH versus James White? The CEH situation. I mean, they're playing on Sunday night.
Yep.
He missed practice this week with an illness. We hear this morning that it's leaning towards CEH playing, which has been hit or miss in itself, but we won't know until it's a game time decision. Meanwhile, 13 games, 12 games have already happened by that time, 11 games. So less options on the bench if you go with CEH and he is ruled out at the game time.
I think you just answered it. It's coming down to a game time decision. We don't know, even though Andy Reid also said on Friday that he feels pretty good that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be active. So I think I'm holding out with the belief that CEH will be available tonight. Having said that, if you do not want to risk it, of course, then James White, I don't think it's the worst case scenario for James White. It's not like a terrible matchup for him. So I don't mind you if you don't want to take on that risk, but I'm pretty sure CH is going to play, which makes him the significantly better option over James White.
Okay. Well, Pat, let's continue with that CEH line from Dylan Ellie. CEH or Nyheim Hines as the flex spot?
I mean, I absolutely hate this, but I have Hines like 2 or 3 spots higher in the rankings. And even though it's kind of setting up to be a Jonathan Taylor game, but it's kind of just setting up to be an entire Colts backfield game, I guess. And as we talk, I think Jonathan Taylor might win the touches war, but Nyheim Hines is the only one who displays consistent playmaking value in that backfield. And I'm going Hines. And the CH John did a really good job laying it out. It's just, even when he's 100% healthy, we're barely getting like RB2 days from CH right now. And I have him ranked right on like the RB2-3 borderline. Because even if he plays, it's something maybe 7 or 8 carries, I bet, for him. And it's just a tough situation. You could take it down to the wide receiver. CH. We have 3 games after Sunday Night Football this week. We usually only have 1. So if you go in, if you want to wait on CH, you will have 3 games worth of options to sift through. But yeah, CH is a very uncertain RB2 this week for me.
Hayden, over to you. Miles Sanders, and this is from Ovella 3. Miles Sanders, who has not scored a touchdown, I believe, in 3 games. Basically, the floor fell out for under him last week in week 12, or Michael Pittman. Speaking about floor, Michael Pittman has a nice steady one, it seems like, with Phillip Rivers, and this is a full point PPR scoring here.
I'm going Miles Sanders. Still have my concerns with Miles Sanders. I don't think he's an RB1 or a bell cow anymore. But Michael Pittman, this floor that we're talking about, it's a little bit fluky to me because there's some touchdowns sprinkled in. And when everything goes right for the Colts, that means 25 pass attempts and they distribute the ball. So like a floor game for Michael Pittman could be like 4 targets, 3 yards, or 3 catches for 40 yards. Like, I don't think that he's established any floor yet just because the Colts, their identity is a very balanced offense.
Quickly, back to you, Hayden. Would you start DJ Chark over Michael Pittman?
Yeah, DJ Chark's in an awesome spot. Road dogs, easy matchup. Glennon's thrown the ball deeper downfield than the other guys. Plus, DJ Chark's really good.
Thank you,
I was
Tom
wondering
Brady.
what you were going to say about Glennon. I can accept that compliment for Glennon. I thought you were going to say Glennon was. I didn't know if you were going to say playing well or what. Yeah, I can.
He's throwing the ball deep.
He missed Keelan Cole for 2 easy touchdowns, but he did have the second highest deep ball rate last week for whatever reason.
Dago, up to you. From Big Nasty Playa, am I crazy for wanting to start Taysom Hill over Kyler Murray? ?
You're not crazy. I don't think I would do it, though. Murray, of course, the issue is that he has not shown us that he can get there in fantasy points with only his arm. And that's what defenses have been forcing him to do, not only the past 2 games, but the past month. And of course, 10 total carries the past 2 weeks, since all defenders are playing him instead of the running backs on RPOs. So I am worried about Kyler Murray, certainly, but I'm still going to take the rushing floor. Right, Pat? I know it's really close.
Yeah, I mean, with Taysom Hill, what you're basically hoping for is what even like a limited Murray will mostly give you. Like, it was his first scoreless start of the season last week. I mean, the shoulder is the big concern, but there's seasons on the line. I think they're probably going to have to throw caution to the wind. But Taysom Hill, like a good day for Taysom Hill is still mostly what a bad day looks like for Kyler Murray. So I will still go Kyler Murray.
And Taysom Hill, of course, living off rushing touchdowns, which we don't expect to continue. Now 4 total, 2 in back-to-back weeks and starts. So, yeah, I think I'm going Kyler.
Hayden, since you write the fantasy usage model, which everyone should check out on Monday nights over on Rotoworld, it really puts, I think, and defines the importance of touches that players get in a good perspective. Rob RMM, Latavius Murray or Benny Snell in full point PPR? I ask this because of Latavius Murray. Is his usage for real, and is it one that we would start over someone like Benny Snell?
This is pretty close. I don't have either of these guys on the top 24. I think Latavius Murray last week really benefited from the Saints knowing that they were going to stomp the Broncos, and that was very evident from like the first drive after looking at Kendall Hinton. So I think Latavius Murray's workload is going to really scale back here. I think that Alvin Kamara is going to go up, Latavius Murray is going to go down, and I would rather go chase the Benny Snell possible like 80%, 70% snap share, and Latavius Murray can have like 30%.
Dago. Actually, Pat, down to you. Gilberto, bench 1 in full point PPR between Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, and David Montgomery.
Man, I mean, most people this week are probably going to say Alvin Kamara, but
and Pat, Hayden had, David Montgomery as his picture up on the cover athlete of his column this week.
Fare thee well, long may you run, Hayden. But Hayden also has Alvin Kamara as an RB1 still, he said, and I'm going to still go Alvin Kamara. 1 catch in 2 games, that's a fluke. We know he's going to catch fewer passes. I still think it's going to normalize to 3 or 4 for the rest of Taysom Hill's run under center. And they can't. They know they can't let Alvin Kamara like die on the vine. Basically, maybe they were managing his touches in 2 games that were not close the past 2 weeks. Like Hayden said, I expect today to be closer. This is one of the nastiest rivalries in the NFL. I think we'll see closer to normal usage for Alvin Kamara today, even in the beautiful setup for David Montgomery. I don't really want to lose Alvin Kamara on my bench in favor of David Montgomery.
Pat, sorry for interrupting you there. I had to get that one out.
To me, I'm all about the interruption. As we know, that's how we do it. It's like give and take. And
let's go up to Daigle. Amar Desai. Interesting conundrum here. Jarvis Landry, who is the leading receiver, who you have talked up with the usage of the last few weeks. Are you willing to go out on a limb and start him over Michael Thomas in full point PPR?
I'm not. I think it's closer than others would think, but I'm Michael Thomas. Again, the one constant in this Saints offense has been the fact that Hill has targeted 18 times the past 2 weeks, a 46% target share. So the opportunity is still there. It's not the greatest matchup as the Falcons defense has turned it around significantly the past month and become actually a respectable unit. Having said that, still indoors. We still expect a faster paced game. So I'm going Michael Thomas here.
Hayden, I don't think we've answered this question, have we? From Wendell Smith, Myles Gaskin, or Chris Carson?
This is close. I think that Chris Carson's going to get his workload that he had previously. Carlos Hyde's a little banged up. I think Chris Carson was kind of a little bit rushed back the previous week, but I'm feeling more confident that the Chris Carson RB1 train is going to get going again. But in this case, I'm going Myles Gaskin. I think his workload is still safer than Chris Carson's just because it's just Patrick Laird back there behind him. And the team total for the Dolphins is right there with the Seahawks. And we know that Russell Wilson is going to get his. We don't know that Tua is going to get his. So I think that Myles Gaskin has a little bit higher touchdown equity than Chris Carson.
I was going to say one, because you were right about Chris Carson being kind of rushed back. Myles Gaskin could be in that exact same situation today. John laid out, though, they have no one behind him except Patrick Laird. But I mean, Myles Gaskin might only be active because Ahmed's hurt, DeAndre Washington's hurt. They have Matt Breida's on the COVID list. And I wouldn't be shocked if Myles Gaskin is just being rushed back too and maybe isn't quite ready for 15 carries, even though they have no alternatives. That's my only concern with Myles Gaskin this week.
So are we getting a Patrick Laird 15 touch game, Pat? Is that what you're – I'm kidding. I am kidding.
Said Patrick Laird couldn't do early downs, I believe, but he can't do any downs.
It also helps Gaskin, though, that Tua is under center because it's Fitzpatrick. Like we saw last week, they will entrust him with the ball. But we've seen that they prefer to run the ball whenever Tua is under center. So I think it just all the stars align for Gaskin.
Lots of thinking, potentially overthinking here in week 13. John Daigle, Julio Jones or Brandon Cooks? And this is from G-Stat-Us. Look, Brandon Cooks is easily the wide receiver 1 for the Houston Texans now. But is that enough to put him over top of Julio Jones?
I mean, if we're assuming that Julio is fully healthy, and we think that after he did practice on Friday as well, I just can't imagine benching Julio here. So if he's fully healthy, makes it all through all 4 quarters, Julio, in my opinion, is still the better play. You have 2 top 12 options here. You're not going to, I would imagine you're not going to lose your matchup because you picked the wrong guy here, but I'm going Julio Jones in this spot.
Okay. Hayden, down to you. Tyler Lockett or Deebo Samuel in half-point PPR. It seems like every time we watch a game that the Seahawks are included in, it's just all DK Metcalf, DK Metcalf, DK Metcalf, and there's very little Tyler Lockett conversation anymore.
There's a theory out there that Tyler Lockett's playing through a knee injury, which I'd somewhat buy, but enough time starting to pass. I feel like Tyler Lockett's got to be ready for some big weeks. And if you want the all-22 take this with a grain of salt. Giants play a lot of cover 3. They're going to be putting more coverage with James Bradbury on DK Metcalf. I think that Tyler Lockett is a better play against zone defense. I'm going Tyler Lockett here, especially with Brandon Ayuk coming back on the other side for Deebo.
Pat, we have not answered or even asked a Kiki QT question yet. So this is from GDog257. Frank Gore, Kiki QT, Nelson Aguilar, or Josh Reynolds? Good luck.
Yeah, I thought Kiki Cutie would be like the most featured name today in our chat, which is but thankfully, people actually have good players to worry about, so that's nice. I'm going to go Nelson Aguilar, even though he had, he was on the injury report this week. He was looking a little uncertain for a while, but he's the closest thing the Raiders have to your number 1 receiver. He still has very limited ceiling. But I like his floor the best there. And Geeky Cutie is a huge wild. I mean, he could easily catch like 8 or 9 passes. He's a pretty big wild card this week. I still haven't ranked us like in the wide receiver 50s because it's an uncertain situation for an offense that's to remake itself on the fly against a really good defense.
Daigle, up to you from Dabo Derek. JK Dobbins or Wayne Gallman? Lots of Wayne Gallman questions. We'll hit in a few more before we close out the show.
It's Dobbins. I am assuming that the last time we saw him, which seems like an eternity ago, I understand, when he handled 41 snaps, out-snap Mark Ingram 41-13 with all 3 running backs healthy as the true workhorse for the Ravens. I'm assuming that usage continues in a terrific spot on Tuesday night against the Cowboys. So it's Dobbins for me. Assuming that usage continues, he's a top 12 running back.
John,
go ahead.
Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, or Miles Sanders? I can only start one.
I think it's crazy enough. I think it's Jonathan Taylor. I like Taylor.
Wow.
I like Taylor a lot this week. It's also because they have that report that Frank Reich said that Jordan Wilkins clearly banged up, which why he has received fewer touches over the past 3 games. So normally in this game script against the Texans, you would think, oh, Wilkins is the closer. That's who they lean on in the fourth quarter. But if they're not even going to do that, then of course it's Taylor because Nyheim Hines is not your early down grinder. So I think it's a great spot for Taylor. I think, for throwing out hot takes here, I think Taylor leads Sunday in rushing yards among any player.
That's possible. I'm buying this a little bit. I mean, the Texans are brutal against the run, and the last time we saw Taylor, he was the guy. And I think down the stretch, the Colts want to see what they have with their second round guy. So I think the roles are defined. Nyheim Hines, the third down guy. I think Jonathan Taylor has downs 1 and 2.
Let's sprint down narrative street here, ladies and gentlemen. You ready for this? Week 13 is the start where for the next 4 weeks, we forget all about what Jonathan Taylor did in the first 12 weeks of the NFL season. And then ahead of the 2021 season, we see that over the next, 3 or 4 games, he rushes for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, makes sense. That backfield his own. And then we carry that over into next season.
I was going to say, wasn't what I wanted to hear. The next 18 minutes are going to be torture.
All right, just a couple more. We have time left. Hayden, down to you. Damien Harris or Tyler Boyd from McDavid Logan?
I think Tyler Boyd's going to have a better game than he had last week. His matchup on the inside is a little easier than it is on the outside for T. Higgins. But Damien Harris was the guy last week. Sony Michel, I think, only played 1 snap. So, yeah, I'll go with his touches. If you're looking for like a little tiebreaker, the Chargers linebacker Denzel Perriman is going to be out as well.
I will ignore the username on this one, Pat, but we will answer the question. Antonio Gibson, Jonathan Taylor, or DeAndre Hopkins? I need a running back and a flex and half-point PPR. So I guess pick one of the running backs and one of the flex spots.
Well, after hearing the Jonathan Taylor spiel from literally everyone on the show, I mean, I'm going to say Antonio Gibson and DeAndre Hopkins. Horrible matchup. I still think DeAndre Hopkins will get 550 in his sleep, 5 catches for 50 yards, and Jonathan Taylor. There's just enough uncertainty there where I guess he didn't have the coronavirus, so he's going to be in good shape. But just enough uncertainty with the Nyheim Hines, and Jordan Wilkins is active. So just enough uncertainty where I say he's 3 of 3 there for me.
Since Billy the Gid is a premium subscriber here, the staff ranking seems slightly split on this. Cooper Kupp or Brandon Cooks in half-point PPR. Daigle, which side are you leaning in that one?
I think it's going to be Brandon Cooks for me. The target share, of course, will be there. I worry about the Texans' offense as a whole today without Will Fuller, but I do not worry about Brandon Cooks' target share. I think he's one of the safer plays on the entire week.
Hayden, inject in this one as well.
I'm buying in the Rams' offense more than the Texans' offense right now, and I think Brandon Cooks is a fine play as a high-end wide receiver too. I think that Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods both have like wide receiver 1 potential here. Just the matchup's so good.
Okay. Pat, we'll close with this. A quarterback question from Ovo Joe. Baker Mayfield or Mitchell Trubisky? Who are you going with today?
I mean, QB6 from week 12, Mitchell Trubisky, you ride or die with Trubs. Upside is not a concept that exists for Baker Mayfield. Trubisky is playing the spiraling Detroit Lions defense, so never feel good about it, but we are going on Mitchell Trubisky today, folks.
All right. That is going to do it for us. I want everyone out there who is tuning in to go and subscribe, yes, to the Rotoworld Football podcast. We'll have a game-by-game recap on Monday morning Every single fantasy relevant player is covered. Every moment that you missed is covered. And then we'll have shows again on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week as well. Go and check out Pat's rankings if you need a little bit more help and even a little boost of information. Rotoworld.com/edge for all of our premium products out there. All right. For John Daigle, for Patrick Daugherty, for Hayden Winks, for all of you, thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate it. This has been Rotoworld Live, served by Applebee's. Good luck today, everyone.
Good luck.
Good luck. Up the villa.